a dream in his hands, staking claims neath the hot desert sand, chasing the glimmer of gold in the sun. Every hill climbed, it's a battle, but he's won. With friends beside him, he's never alone. Through valleys and mountains, they've made it their home. Treasure comes in the memories we make, in the laughter and stories our friendships create. Gold might be pretty, but it's nothing compared to the joy in the journey, the love that we share. They ride the ATV through the wide open plains, laughing and shouting, forgetting the pains. The wind on their faces, a taste of pure freedom. In the heart of Arizona, they know they'll beat them. Life's a wild ride, they shout out so bold. Jack says you never slow down, you never grow. Treasure comes in the memories we make, in the laughter and stories our friendships create. Gold might be pretty, but it's nothing compared to the joy in the journey, the love that we share.
Hey, welcome everybody. It is Wednesday once again. It is, hell, I don't even know what day it is. It is April the 9th. Welcome, April the 9th. And let me hit on over there as everybody's popping in there. I see Paul and Mark. You guys carry Jerry, Buck. Welcome, everybody. We got some guests tonight. Can you believe it? Let's start popping people in here. Let's see. I see Peter's finally joined us here. Okay. There's Lisa. Hello, Lisa. Here's Joe. Here's Pete. Hey, welcome, everybody.
How you doing, Jack?
Hey, all right. How y'all doing?
Hey,
Lisa,
Jack. How's it going?
Doing good. Doing good.
How you guys been?
We've been
What happened to me?
I don't know. What happened to you? You turned dark.
I don't know. I don't know.
You froze.
Where'd you go, Lisa?
Let me
to the
move
dark
her and
side.
bring her back again. Yeah, something happened to your thing. You're dark now, Lisa.
All right. Let me go out and come back in.
Okay, Rocky Mountain. Hello, Brad.
All right. I'm leaving.
Okay. She's gone.
Oh.
That's funny. I mean, I see her there, but when I pull her in, it's just black. So I don't know what the deal is. Desert Prospector, first time tuning in. All right, long time listener, first time, whatever they say. Yeah. Welcome. Jade's Adventures, welcome. From New Zealand. Whoa. All over the country. So what have you guys been up to? Why don't you guys both introduce yourself to everybody see, you're on my list. I asked a few weeks ago, who do you guys want to see as guests? And Pete and Joe was on that list. So, hey.
Good. Go ahead, Pete.
Oh, my name is Pete Schichtel. We live in North Jersey, not too far from Joe. We are established metal detectorists, treasure hunters. We've both had different things published, and we're good friends, and probably will end up doing this for the rest of our lives. Oh.
That's right. Yeah, I'm Joe Jorgensen. I'm the president of East Coast Research and Discovery. It's a metal detecting club. Pete and myself are also the Lost Treasure Seekers, and we did a pilot for History Channel that we spoke about a while back, and we get out searching for any kind of treasure, whether it be metal detecting or bottle digging, looking for Indian arrowheads, fossils, you name it. If it's
Doll's
on the ground,
yep,
on the ground or in the ground, we look for it. So that's where we are. And like Pete said, we're in North Jersey.
North Jersey, that's pretty cool. Let's see. I see some. I don't know how you say that. Desiree, Adeline. I probably butchered that. So I got a few things we talk about here, but why don't you both talk about, or kind of how you got started and when you got started. What started you into this hobby that you guys are doing now? When did it start? How you got started?
I started when I was about 12 years old, and uh, my mom and dad, we used to go camping. So we used to go to the trailer shows that used to be in the armories and what have you to see the new models and stuff. And back then, that would be, I could date myself, that would be around 1972. You saw a lot of vendors that were selling metal detectors. Metal detectors were getting popular around that time. And with the camping, that was a good segue, camping in different areas to go metal detecting. So we used to look at them, and then when we were out in Gettysburg, camping out there was Gettysburg Electronics, and it actually, I think it's still in business, or if it's not, it went out about 2 years ago. There was a used machine hanging in the window, and we bought a $40 bounty hunter, and that's what started my journey in doing this. Pete?
Well, about the same. I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and I always liked Indian artifacts and history. And my parents, the same thing. We went to Bull Run camping and went to Gettysburg and everywhere. We'd visit all the forts on the way down to Florida. I think Joe and I probably crossed paths a whole bunch when we were like 10, 11 years old, because we talked.
Yeah, we talked about that. We were traveling the same areas, the same route around the same time.
I remember a kid that looked kind of like Joe.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you're the guy I knocked down by the swing set. So
I was the short guy.
Yeah.
But my father, when we went to Bull Run, I was probably 11 or 10, and I got really, in Gettysburg, in the same trip, got really, really psyched about the whole thing. And my father built me a Heath kit. I don't know if you guys remember the Heath kits, but they were around electronic kits where you could build radios and stuff in very, very rudimentary soldering and all. And he built me this metal detector, and I think it probably couldn't even find a car, but I did make out I was doing it through the yard and the whole thing. And one thing led to another. I started to find Indian points and Indian artifacts. I came back to metal detecting when I was probably in my mid or so 20s, and the rest is history. Joe and I have amassed lots of things we found over the years, lots of Indian artifacts, lots of great coins, always coins, and everything else. Our favorite are seeded dimes, I think, right, Joe?
Yeah.
But we find a lot of stuff. We do a lot of stuff, and we do shows, we do talks. People come to us. We go to some of the local libraries, institutions, and we do a lot as a Lost Treasure Seekers. We do a lot in the club, ECRDA. We both contribute a bit to American Digger magazine, which I will unabashedly plug right here, which is a great publication for mostly metal detecting, but anything else can be put in it too. We do shark's teeth. We do bottle hunting, like Joe said. We do a lot of stuff. Joe has been particularly excited over the years about starting to dig privies, which we've only really done a little bit, but we hope to get into that pretty soon, which is basically open pit toilets that were usually filled in with garbage.
I heard that's a pretty shitty job, though.
It's pretty shitty, but you can find a lot of shit. I'm telling you.
It's a smelly job.
But that's pretty much it. And now we work together on projects. We do a lot with the club, and we go a lot of hunting together, hanging out, and all that. So,
well, I know you've got a huge. Let's see who popped in. Julianne of Berry. You got a huge museum. I mean, you've got more stuff than probably the local museums have.
Well, yeah, actually, if you go on to our the club's Facebook page, which is under East Coast Research and Discovery, you're going to see that we have a couple videos, because this past weekend we just did a fundraiser with the club. It was up in Sussex County, which is the northern counties in New Jersey, which is like going back in time. It's all farmland. They grow there's a lot of hay grown, there's corn, a lot of cows. It's all colonial land up there, and a lot of colonial houses. And with the club, for probably the past 20 years, we've been trying to make a breakthrough into getting permission to go up on those farms. But it's a pretty tight-knit community. If you don't know somebody, people don't really give you the time of day. If you would go knocking on doors, occasionally if you find somebody to let you do it, but people worry about liability, and the club has insurance. So we were doing a show up at the Sussex County Fairgrounds up there, trying to solicit some permissions, and we bumped into this lady that started this Rebecca's House, which is a group home for adults that need to be supervised, like people that are either autistic or disabled. And we decided to fund up with them for a fundraiser. So it turned out to be a perfect partnership. We ran a 2-day hunt, a Saturday and Sunday hunt up there, and people made a $150 donation to be able to hunt some of these sites. And Pete, tell them a few of the sites that we did up there.
Well, it's mostly farmland. Actually, there are parts of New Jersey that's still very, very rural. We always assume everything is so urban around here, but there's some real good areas out there, farm corn, pumpkins, and all of that stuff. And we were able to go to particular farm sites. And it's interesting because a lot of people in the clubs and all, a lot of the sites are hunted out, parks. It's tough to get permission on private properties now because people are, very, very cautious about everything. But we're able to get permission on these farms. And it's like the last private property is like the last frontier for some of this detecting. And some of the places that we have been able to get on, we had found some incredible stuff. Some people found some colonial coppers, which are very early U.S. or even English copper pennies, truly pennies, not cents. And we found some people brought in some farm equipment, things like that, but a lot of people brought in some very early silver. There was one particular spot where a bunch of Liberty seeded dimes were found, which is very rare to find even one of those anymore. But a gentleman there had found, 5 or 6 of them, Joe?
He found 6 of them, 6 seeded dimes from the 1870s and 8 Indian heads going all the way back to the 1860s. But with some of the sites, there was an apple orchard on one of them. There was a grist mill foundation. There was a cellar hole. Beautiful spots. We even were able to go in the main part of the town and do the rear portion of a funeral parlor. The funeral parlor has been in existence in the same family since like 1890, and before that it was the first bank in Sussex. So people found a little patch of grass behind that. They found some nice stuff, and then they got permission to do the backyard next door, and some nice stuff came out of that. But the fundraiser, we had about 60 people sign up. They had a tricky tray and a couple 50-50s. We raised $10,248 for that charity with the fundraiser we did. It was a fantastic time. We're planning already for next year. She has a big horse farm. Some of the people want to revisit some of the sites because, like what Pete said, the land up there is, you got some dead flat fields, and then you have a lot of rolling land up there, like big knolls, big whalebacks of hills and stuff that they plow and farm. And on top of the one guy that found all that seeded stuff, he did some research. He looked up some historic maps and saw that there had been a couple colonial houses that had gotten knocked down up on the top of that knoll. And there was a lot of stuff that came out of there. A couple guys that got to that spot first, Ron from Gold Digger, he found 3 large cents, 1, 2, 3, right in a row, and a couple Indian heads and seeded, and quite a few really nice objects came out of that. Plus, like Pete said, there was a lot of large cents, a couple nice tokens. There was a Canadian half-cent that was found, some silver jewelry, rings, and what have you. So it was a real successful weekend, but that kept us busy with the planning and the logistics and everything with that. But it's really a lot of fun. It was a successful weekend.
When you say seeded, what do you mean by seeded?
Some of the hunts that we do, this was a natural finds hunt, but some hunts that we run, people pay an entry fee, and then the money that we collect, because we have one coming up in 2 weeks. We have a 2-day hunt in Pompton Plains, which is our hometown where we meet. our open hunt, which means it's not just for members, is in 2 weeks. And we have it at the local swimming beach. It's a lake in our town that has a nice sandy beach, and it has a wooded picnic area. And we collect, an entry fee, and we buy silver dimes, $half, 1 ounces, little gold coins, all kinds of stuff. And you compete to win those prizes.
So it means you're planting the stuff then is what you're
Yes.
when you say
Yeah,
seed.
we're planting it. When it's seeded, we'll put the silver dimes on the beach, and then we'll take some other types of coins and stamp numbers on them. And those will be for maybe a detector or, a nice digging tool or stuff like that.
Cool. I see Stephen jumped in. Mark. Hello, Mark. And Steve Collier, Craig Carter. How's the weather, Collier? I hope all the weather is great, huh? Anyway, so how's the weather out there in your guys' neck of the woods?
It's not quite spring yet. It comes and goes. The past weekend out in northern New Jersey, we were up in northern New Jersey. We were rained out one day. Not rained out, but it was misting and drizzling all day long, and some of us got pretty wet. But stoic as we are, no one really quit it. We just kept going. And it's supposed to be a little bit rainy, but it's chilly and rainy a little bit still. We're just waiting for spring to just explode.
It says 94 here.
Oh boy.
It'll cool down again. Janan, hello Janan. Yeah, it'll cool back down. It's calling for the mid 70s, high 70s next week, but
Nice.
we're kind of a little high spell right now.
So you guys must be loving this $3,000 an ounce gold.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, thinking about you.
Yeah, but I don't keep any gold, so my gold disappears pretty well as soon as I get it.
Well, you gotta go get some now.
Did you see that?
My gold. Yeah, my gold is in a
That's
bank.
gold, Jack.
Yeah, that's an old cross I had years ago.
Well, no, it's not.
Well, that's all the gold I found years ago.
Yeah, well, it's not a cross that you had. It's 4 gold pieces that you
Well,
made
okay.
into a cross.
Okay,
Oh,
well,
cool.
okay.
That's cool.
So Paul says, can you hunt on public wooded land?
Yes and no. Each state kind of varies, but with New Jersey, any federal land or like national land, national parks, got to stay away. Strong restrictions along the Delaware River, which is the river that separates New Jersey from Pennsylvania. They actually created a national corridor that's kind of like encompasses even people's private homes, and you're not supposed to remove anything from the soil in that corridor. The state parks, they will let you in the state parks if you get a free permit, and they let you do the beach area if they have a lake. They don't want you in the woods. And county parks varies by county. Some counties give you a hard time and others don't. So you have to know where you're going. But all in all, if you go to some of the reservations, and they're not Indian reservations, they just call them reservations because they're big areas of woods. Those are usually open, and we found some really good stuff in there.
Oh, yeah.
I remember one time when I was in Michigan, this guy took me over there and we were hunting in this wooded area, this field like, and he says, yeah, up the road is the park area, and you're not supposed to go into the park, the boundary of the park area. So we get up to the boundary and there's a sign there, but it doesn't say anything. So he said, I guess we can go on in. And once you kind of go on in and start hunting inside there, if you look behind you, the sign says no hunting in the park. But it doesn't say going in. It says it coming out of the park.
Yeah.
That was always kind of funny.
It
A
looks like
couple
they're
times
trying to.
I've spoken to people, attorneys, and people have said that if there's no ordinance, if the police or somebody stops you and says you're not allowed to be in here, if there's no ordinance that says you can't swing a detector or you can't look for shark's teeth or something like that, then basically, we're a country of laws. If there's no law that says you can't, a lot of people operate by this, then, might as well.
Well, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission.
Yeah.
That's good.
But you have to remember, we live in New Jersey. We're one of the highest tax state. Real estate is outrageous. If they find a way to tax you, they will. So you always you got to be careful, because sometimes they're looking to write tickets. But all in all, we've done pretty good. There's only been a couple members in the club that got themselves in trouble, and most of the time, if they ask you to leave, you just leave. Don't give them a hard time.
Yeah, and there's times where some of the areas these reservations are close to urban areas. They build them to maintain wildlife, trees and stuff closer to urban areas, and we're able to detect in a lot of them. But there's been a couple times where people have come across things that you really shouldn't come across, being close to places like Newark, which are not the most savory places in the country. People have come across bodies. People have come across guns. I've had the police put me on the hood of the car because I called in something I saw in the woods, and when I came out, they were all ready, because it's, sometimes it's a little frightening closer to these bad areas. But for the most part, the police are pretty cool about everything. They really are. And interested in what you found, right? Joe, they ask us a lot.
You guys got gold up there, or is there no gold in your neck of the woods?
Well, you know what? There's spots that people said they've found some, little pencil points and stuff like that. We have a lot of big areas of glacial till that came down, up from, Canada, up that area. So some of these areas you can find, you can find some dust, you can find some flakes in some of the sand and stuff that came down from up that way. So there's always little pockets. The one interesting thing, the one farm that we were on this past weekend, we were talking to the owners, because they're the first people, I guess his great-grandfather got the property from the family that got it from King George, from a land deed. So there hasn't been a lot of different families on this property. And he was saying there's even, they have their own cemetery right next to where they live there, of all the descendants. He was telling us that up in the woods, there's about a 10-foot hole. He said it goes down about 60 foot and then it tees off. It's a silver mine. So that really spurred our interest, because not far from there, there's a lot of iron ore in northern New Jersey. It's riddled with mines, with the iron ore. But not far from that area that he said there was a silver mine, they were mining zinc. Actually, Thomas Edison owned the one mine up there in Augsburg, and they were mining zinc out of that. So that silver mine is interesting, because he said you could kind of see the mule trail where there's a tailings pile. So we're going to try to go up there and see if we find anything in the tailings pile. That would be interesting.
Well, one thing I know you guys have talked about before, and I've always find it a very interesting story, Nell's index finger. I wonder what that is. From Canada. Hello. You guys talked about the that rag bond or rag stuff.
The pulp dump.
Pulp dump. Snake pit. We still
That's right.
we still go there. We were there 2 or 3 weeks ago with one of the people in our club. She enjoyed herself a lot there.
So
you
explain
never know
what all that is. And
go ahead, Pete. Tell them about the rag picker.
All right. Well, paper. If you've ever noticed, in a dollar bill or something, there's fibers. You can see fibers, and most paper is made of wood pulp and cotton fiber to bond it together. And it's a complicated process, which I don't understand completely. But in the process of making paper and felt, cotton was needed. Now, to go down south and buy a bale of cotton or have it shipped up is expensive. So the best thing they could do, and the most profitable thing they could do, is to recycle cotton, cloth and cotton material. And that came in the form of old clothing and surplus and all, which brings in rag pickers, which would go picking the rags out of the garbage and sell them into the middleman, who would eventually sell them to the paper companies or the felt companies. So a lot of the clothing that they would use and recycle like that had buttons and had things in the pockets and whatever. So when they would go through the process of shredding up the cotton and emulsifying it with the big machines and all that, they would filter out the solids and just have the cotton pulp and mix it with the paper pulp and make paper. A lot of the things, though, that they would filter out, very desirable things to us today, they would cart nearby usually and just dump. So we go to these places now. We've located a number of them and we detect, and there's buttons and there's coins and there's the most amazing things, the oddest things. I mentioned doll's eyes. Past couple of weeks, someone had found blue dot, like two eyes in the bottom of the hole looking up. But anything that could have been made from, we find tent grommets, you find military uniforms, you find naval uniforms, anything that they would have gotten in surplus that they could use this cotton for, for this basically bonding material for the paper. So it's you have no idea what you're going to find. And a lot of times these dumps were on top of other dumps, mixed up with trash and all that. And tell them about the shoe pile, Joe.
Yeah, the one because we've located about 6 of them that there's still like a dunnage pile, because basically they just took it into the woods by the pulp mill and just dumped the stuff out. So we've come across these metal detecting, and usually once we find one, you just put the metal detector down and you just sit on the ground with either your shovel or a little 3-prong garden tool, and you're just digging through almost like solid buttons, believe it or not, suspender buttons, all kinds of other stuff. And the one that Pete's referring to, that's the snake pit, we call it. We found the Civil War and post-Civil War military snake ornaments. They're like a buckle for like a sash. And those are bucket listers for anybody that hunts Civil War. Pete's going to get some and show you. And what they're, did you find, you have one, Pete? Or,
yeah.
But yeah,
Can you
there's,
see that?
get it real close. There you go.
Is that good?
Yeah, those are bucket listers.
So they went like this. There was another half. This one I found somewhere else, but this is basically what we're finding.
There's like a ring with the keeper on it. And
they're actually a bucket lister for people who do what we do to find a snake buckle. How many have you found, Joe?
But this one dump we found, we probably lost track after 100, because we took some people there. They have found them. We both have, probably 30 each or so. And next to this dump is a hill, and the hill is all leather soles from shoes. So there must have been some recycling of, or it was a cobbler. We can't figure out why there's so much leather, but we speculate it's probably 5 feet deep with leather, and the stuff that's in amongst it is kind of preserved because it sheds a lot of water, and the tannic acid from the leather sort of protects stuff, because we found some like military buttons in there, and they look like the day they threw them in, and the things are 100 years old. So it's an endless endeavor trying to find everything that's in that area. It's a pretty decent area. It's probably about an acre worth of piles here and there with all kinds of stuff in it. And a lot of the piles, they threw stuff on it and burnt it. So you'll find a pile where everything's in like a conglomerate, like a concretion. It's all bonded together. You find melted bottles and everything, and a lot of stuff got ruined. But that's why the stuff is valuable and desirable now, because stuff they threw out, a lot of it didn't survive. So we have a really, really nice button collection of all the stuff we got in there. Suspender collection, found some nice little sterling silver jewelry and stuff. It's a real treasure hunt.
Vintage marbles, they're really cool. They're probably in somebody's pockets or something.
You know what I heard once upon a time, I don't know if this is true or not, but you talk to this rag bond. I mean, you can go down to the like Staples or any of these stationery stores and buy rag bond paper, and I guess some people want to buy it so they can print up money. But what I've heard is money has a red thread in it, and the stuff you buy doesn't have red.
Yeah, they have a red and a blue thread. It's a proprietary linen that they make the money out of. Plus, now they have all the security features. They have that PVC thread in there. They got the holograms. Everything, it's getting more and more difficult for the average person to just counterfeit
It's
stuff.
harder for me to keep doing this stuff, man. These 20s are not popping out like they used to.
Yeah.
It's getting tougher every day. It's tougher.
Megan Silver Stacker, yeah. So the stuff you find, I mean, I know you keep it all because your basement is full of bombs and if a bomb ever went on in your place,
Yeah.
you got more shells and ammunition but I mean, do you keep a lot of your stuff or do you give it away?
Just let me clarify one point. Nothing I have in my basement is live. Nothing is live. Looks scary, but it's not live.
I know you really don't have a lot of stuff there. I know you don't. Just
Well,
a few.
If you hear your doorbell ring now, Pete, run.
We don't. Joe and I don't sell our stuff that we find. We generally don't. One time I was out detecting with an older club member of ours. It was a good friend, and I found a silver soup spoon, sterling silver soup spoon, and he gave me $40 on the spot. That's the only time I think I needed the $40, but I sold it to him right on the spot. It's the only thing I ever sold that I can remember. Joe, you sell stuff? Some of the people in the club, they buy quarters and dimes, and they go right to the coin place and sell them.
Yeah, no, I've really hung on to most of the unique stuff that I've found, but I am getting to the point where I think I am going to try to give it new life with a younger person, pass some of the collections along because you don't see a hearse pulling a trailer, so you have to start planning for that.
Yeah. No,
well, a funny story. We have a friend who, through whatever circumstances, he might have, we speculate he was metal detecting too much. So he and his wife drifted apart and they were getting a divorce. And he couldn't really pay for his divorce so much. So we talked to him about getting an attorney and all of that. And in order to pay for the attorney, he used to go down the Jersey Shore, which for us is an hour and a half or so ride. This guy can read the tides. He can read everything. And he'd detect, he'd find rings, he'd find chain, whatever he'd find. On the way home, he'd sell it to the jeweler and then go to the lawyer and make a payment. So basically, he had this cycle going on about paying for his divorce. Worked out for him.
Yeah, it's it.
Even the next wife was okay with it.
Well, for worse, I mean, I've been out sometimes, I'll be metal detecting. You find a nugget and somebody will, hey, you want to sell that? Man, at least let me get it home and clean it up and take a picture of it first.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. But Roberto Garcia, is that how you say that? Hello. Yes, the people are still popping into the room. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to post them. These are, so let me ask you guys this. What's your favorite detector to use for what you guys are doing?
That's Joe.
My latest one now is the MindLab Manticore.
Okay.
That's a really hot machine. I do because they're like golf clubs. I don't have just one detector. If I'm going to hunt in the lakes or down the shore in the wet sand, a lot of times in the lakes, I was using the Excalibur. That's a water machine. I did use the Knox 600. The 600 and 800 is great machines for in the water, but I would recommend only using them for until the warranty runs out. Once the warranty runs out, don't submerge them because they have a tendency of cracking around the charging port and then you toast them. I toasted my 600 up in Cape Cod, but that's a fantastic machine for weighting from the chest down. But the Manticore is kind of a souped up Equinox, or it's a friendlier version of the 3030, their high-end machine. And that Manticore is good. It's great for on the beach, and it's great for in the woods. That's a good all-round machine.
Well, what I like about it's got that 2D graph on it that shows you, like if the targets are right on the bar or not, and if gold is lower down on the, So I mean, I used to always hunt with the 800, the Equinox,
right,
and then the Manticores replace that 800.
Yeah.
Of course.
How you doing with nuggets with that? How's that for the gold?
It actually will pick up gold. I just put on the smaller. when I ordered my Manticore, I didn't get the 3 corals with it that I guess you do now. So I had to buy that smaller coral that goes with it or whatever. That I really like that one a lot better than the standard ones.
Right, right.
But it
Yeah,
helps
but
you
that,
separate. When you're in gold area and you got a lot of trash, it comes in handy on that numbering, the VDI, the screen,
yeah,
and when that bar and all of that plays in. It probably won't pick up as smallest pieces like, say, a gold monster would, but it's because I think those things run. I know it's a multi, but I think the high on that is 40 kilohertz,
yeah.
where like your gold monster is 45, and I think that's better for gold.
Okay, yeah. I was just playing with the frequencies this past weekend, and I think you're right. 40 is the highest locked-in setting you could do, unless you do multi.
Yeah, and multi's really what you want to hunt with most of the time, anyways. I guess unless you're looking for gold, then But so the lower the frequency, the deeper the target. The higher the frequency, the shallower the target.
Yeah. Well, I know that on the soda cans, you've got the pull tabs, and then you got that little 1/8-inch rivet that holds the pull tab to the can. Down on the Jersey Shore on the beach, I was picking up those little 1/8-inch round aluminum discs, and they read like gold. The little pieces of aluminum, but they drive you crazy in the sand because you think you have an earring back or something like that, and it turns out to be the little rivets from either the soda cans or from the beach chairs. They have little aluminum rivets on them too. But sensitive machines, the machines are getting better and better. They leak a little more technology with each model. No big advancements, just a little bit to keep you buying them.
And the prices keep going higher and higher too.
Yep.
Well, Joe, tell him about your dad when the machines just hit a tone for everything.
Yeah, well, that's going back in the 70s. That was pre-discrimination. And then in the mid-70s, you started coming out with early discrimination to turn out the iron. But you used to be able to use those early White's machines. You could almost tell by the tone of the beep, and if it was a double beep, it was a nail. If you got the same in each direction, same tone, it might be a coin. But you actually got to the point where you could tell when you had a nice silver dime or something just by the tone. So whatever, people always ask, what's the best machine? The best machine is the machine that you know the best. If you really know your machine and you're getting the most out of it, you're going to find stuff.
Well, Joe and I have been doing this long enough that we get a lot of people ask us questions. A lot of people say, you hear the same conversation. I got this machine because it goes really deep and I'm going to find good stuff. And it's on and on and on. But it really is about the person, like Joe says, knowing the machine, knowing yourself, and understanding what's going on. You're not going to go out and buy a great machine and all of a sudden you're going to be the best detectorist in the world. There's a lot more to it than just that. A lot more to it. You know that even with gold, I'm sure.
Yeah, but you still have machines that are tuned more just for finding gold, and then some
definitely
machines that are more tuned. Like I also have the XP Deus, that's more for treasure hunting. Well, with the 2-box on that, and that so it just depends on. Although that will find gold, the frequencies and what they're tuned for. Gold machines are more tuned for gold. Multi-frequencies will do a little bit of everything. Will they do as best as a pure treasure hunter or a pure gold machine? Probably not, but they're right there comparable for a multi-function machine that are better than having to buy 2 machines, say, or something.
Well, I'll tell you something. A good tip that was shared with me, and it makes a lot of sense. Up here in New Jersey, a lot of the people, like I say, we're not looking for nuggets. We're looking for colonial relics and old coins and what have you. Person I talked to had a tiny little pewter button, probably the size of like a 3-cent piece. And he carries it in the little plastic fines box. And when he goes to a farm or a wood site, cellar hole or something, first thing he does with his machine is he finds a spot that's kind of quiet, where there's no signals. Then he'll take that little pewter button and bury it down 5 inches and then set his machine up. Make sure he's getting that target. Because if you're just turning your machine on, especially if you're just putting it in factory settings, turning it on and going, you're losing a lot of sensitivity, a lot of depth. You take the target that you're looking for, in your case, maybe a little nugget, and if you're worried about losing the nugget, take a little super glue and a piece of fishing line and tie it on there and bury that nugget down 5 inches or however deep you feel comfortable, and tune your machine to that, because the mineralization of the ground, the moisture, all the environmental factors of the ground, every time you go out is different. So you set that machine up, play around with your settings, and get that optimum signal for that, and then you will have better success. He's done very well by his hunting cellar holes with that technique, because this way you know your machine is set to the maximum sensitivity.
We stick nuggets on poker chips. We call them test nuggets or whatever.
There you go.
But I remember when I went to Michigan, the buddy had invited me up there to hunt copper artifacts, and we went into this one area, and he says this area's been cleaned out. He had a White's Classic or something like that, and he said I've hunted the crap out of this thing, and he had an awesome collection. Well, back then I had the Mind Lab 3500 that I went in there with. Man, I went so much deeper than he ever did, and I came out with some of the most fantastic stuff. He kept saying, "Man, I got to get me one of these machines," because I had no idea they would go deeper, But
yep, that's a prime example. we had
sorry.
Good.
The comment about sites being cleaned out, that's very, very common in what we do, especially these group hunts. The one spot we were this past weekend, we heard everybody, oh, that's cleaned out. Oh, I went through that. Oh God, you see the pounded, there's holes everywhere. Well, at the end of the day, a friend of mine, Altera, and I had walked through this area again, and you get tuned in to these scratchy, shitty hits, and we start pulling out the Indian heads that were all just basically gone over, that people were tuned into the silver, tuned into the seeded dimes and all that stuff. And it's never cleaned out. I mean, we could tell stories about that all night long, how, went into these areas and you found the belt plate, because Joe always used to say a lot of people that are new to the hobby come out the first, third or fourth or fifth time out, come out with a big silver $50, because everybody who's going out there probably thought that was a tin can. And all the pros, all the real good hunters passed by a lot of things. Remember that, Joe, the woman on the beach that found the barber half or something?
Yeah, I've seen that quite often. Novice hunters go into some of the parks that we've hunted a lot, and especially the one person found a nice barber half by the lake. And a lot of people kind of avoided the lake because there was a lot of crushed cans down there, and there was a lot of lead sinkers and what have you. And when you're new, you're really kind of digging all those big overload signals. You haven't learned to dig the smaller hits. And sure enough, they came back with a barber half, and everybody was like looking at each other like we've all been in that park, but nobody ventured in that trashy area. And they turned one up.
Well, when you mentioned, like not being hunted out, I mean, if you're hunting with the mono coral, say, and you know how the monos work, if you just go over it, you can barely miss, barely miss it unless you're going to completely cover every inch. Most people either springing too fast, they don't give it time for a signal to even register, they're gone over it, or they just miss it by an inch, where somebody else will come in next. Maybe it's laid in like a coins laid in sideways, and if you don't go over it just right, in an opposite direction, you're going to walk over that.
Right.
So you can find it at a different time.
And that cone, the cone that goes down from the coil, the deeper you go, if you're 2 inches from the coil, 2 inches from the surface, it's a big field. It's a large area. But that cone that goes down, the deeper you go, the smaller it gets, to the point that you're like a fingertip going around and happen to land on a coin. It's just, it's much more difficult the deeper you get. That's why the double D coils and a lot of these other ones are very effective, because they can sweep across as opposed to this little cone.
Right. Well, the double Ds go down straight, but then you're losing that depth where the cone would go down past.
Right.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
Yeah,
more of a chance to
the
pick a lot
trade-off.
up that way too.
yeah.
But that's
So do
true.
you guys like which? I mean, do you guys have a preference, or double D or a monocoral?
Well, you know what? I have a couple of the old Fisher machines, and I did really well with like the Coin Strike, the CZ7. I used to really do good with that, and that's that's like using a funnel, but it went deep. That CZ7 in the wet sand, I was getting quarters under good conditions down over a foot deep in the wet sand. So, but once again, you had to kind of go very slow and scrub the area because it's a very small, at that depth, it's a very small field. But in general, the double D, because the Jersey Shore nowadays is so much competition. When something's lost, you're lucky if it makes it through a full tide cycle, because there's people hunting in the morning and hunting in the evening. So any fresh drops, every beach has somebody hunting them, and that low tide to high tide mark gets hit probably twice a day, and stuff does sink fast. With the conditions down in our Jersey Shore with the waves and stuff, but you want as much coverage as possible. So the double D is the foil of choice for the beach hunters right now. Like you say, in the woods, you once you find a good spot, a good cellar hole or something, then you can go back maybe with an older machine and see if you turn anything up, because even from over here, you guys don't get frost in the ground unless you're up in the mountains, I guess, right? Or over here in the winter, the ground freezes. So it freezes and thaws, and that moves stuff around. So you go to a site that was producing, 2 years ago, you can go back and the coin may have been on edge and it tilted a little bit with the
Oh, yeah.
frost, and then you turn
Oh,
it up again.
So earlier you guys mentioned who's in there, A&M prospecting. Earlier you guys mentioned privies. What's some of the ways how you locate where these privies were?
Well, we got a probe. It's about a 3 to 4 foot spring steel 1/4 inch rod on a T handle, and at the end of that 1/4 inch rod is a ball bearing, like a 1/2 inch ball bearing, welded to it. So when you're pushing that probe, you're just pushing that 1/2 inch ball bearing or 3/8 ball bearing. That's all you're pushing. You're not getting the resistance of the whole rod. Like if you didn't have that flared end to it, you wouldn't be able to push it in. And you poke around in the yard, and a lot of times you could look for a depression. And Pete's good at this. You go, if it's an old colonial house, straight out the back door, 50 to 75 feet is usually the outhouse. There was a rhyme or reason the way they put them in. So a lot of times you can walk right out the back door, take X number of paces, and then start probing. And when you hit one, you'll be able to bury that right up to the handle. It'll go right down, unless they filled it with junk. Sometimes popular thing with the privies is when they were going to either move it or abandon it, they would start throwing in all kinds of garbage.
yeah, very handy to throw in household garbage. It was handy.
Yeah.
But I mean, well, if we were going out in the desert where some of these old homesteads were and all of that, I'm sure people want to look for where these privies were. I mean, you could take a rod. I mean, if I had a garden hose hooked onto it and I'm using the water to force down, but just take a rod, I'm not going to get that through the dirt to see or find any where these privies were.
Yeah,
they
it's.
have, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Pete.
Well, they have here. They have access to what they call the Sanborn maps, which are insurance maps. I guess they're national. I'm not really sure, but there was a time when they were controlling all that, and I've seen privy diggers that would go behind some of the houses in Morristown, and they would pace off whatever it was, 150 feet or whatever, 28 feet, 50 feet. They would pace off a certain amount, and they would say, okay, should be right here. And they would start pushing the probes down, and they would hit brick or whatever line the privy, because they were lined with stone, and they would go through these hard dirt. They'd say, okay, it's hard, then hit brick, and then all of a sudden they hit the soft spot where there was ash or whatever was the privy was eventually filled with. But there was legislation that required that they were built at certain distances from a dwelling. So that gives people a good idea if you understand, and you can get local ordinances where privies might have been, because they're covered up. They're covered up by gardens, they're covered up by trees. I mean, they're not a chance of seeing some of them at all sometimes. And where these guys I was watching dig, an old man and a young man, it was amazing. Right in the middle where we parked the cars and all this stuff, they located the privy, and they went down to the very bottom. And something very fascinating happened. The guy was down the bottom of the hole, and he got the young man came up, and he had in his hand, he had black muck. And I said, he goes, you know what this is? And I said, no. And he said, seeds, all the seeds that didn't digest. And he goes, that's when we tell we're getting to the bottom of the privy, when it turns into a harder soil and this layer of shit, literally seeds and stuff like that. So,
well,
very interesting about it.
A few years ago out here in the yard, I was detecting, and I found this metal. I thought it was like maybe a safe or something. And I didn't know what it was. Later, what it was a lid that would open up, but it had clay pipe, and I followed that pipe, and then I got into, I'm assuming it was, somebody told me it was a privy. It had these stone pipes, and it was lined with brick. And so I just went and got the backhoe, and I just dug it all out. And down in the bottom of this thing, it was black, but at the bottom, they had all these little bones, like chicken bones and stuff like that. That's all I found in that thing.
Wow.
Coins and stuff, man, but no.
Well, Joe's good. Joe's for a while we talked about this quite a bit, and Joe had figured out a lot of it out. We haven't really gotten to do as much as we'd like to do, but Joe had made the proper what do you call it? Probe and all that. So it's something we hope to do in our retirement.
Yeah, we located, we had another fundraiser during COVID, and we hunted an old house, and I brought the probe because the one owner wanted to know where the privy was in the back. And we found it was a two-seater. That means it was like a rectangular brick structure in the ground, and it had an outhouse that had two seats in it. So it was a little wider than normal. And we located it because you can force that probe down on an angle and find the walls of it, because a lot of times they were brick lined. And I gave them a good layout of where it was. And I don't know if he ever dug it or not. I should stop back there, and if he didn't dig it, offer to dig it for him, because you could really turn up. It's hit or miss because it depended on the habits of the person. Like the one you said that you only found the chicken bones and stuff. Maybe they were not throwing any kind of bottles and household waste in there, except for maybe the chicken carcasses and what have you. Only stuff that would degrade. Other people kind of chuck everything in there, because the more bottles you throw in there, you're kind of shortening the life, because if you're going to fill it up with bottles, you're going to have to dig a new privy eventually. So it depends on the household habits of how strict the father was in throwing stuff in there.
Yeah,
I found one time in a shallow privy at the Hibernian mine, which is a mine area a little bit north of us. I wasn't an experienced privy digger, but I started to poke around. I was probably a teenager, and I found a chamber pot that somebody must have dropped into the privy, because it's an intact chamber pot in the privy. So
this thing I was talking about, it probably was part of an old house or something, which actually had running water, and that lid was probably a clean out lid. And then the pipes went over, and it came up to a flange, like a toilet seat or something. May have been like it was part of an old house or the foundation, but they had that privy thing further. I didn't know what it was, and somebody told me it was a privy is what it was. But,
nice.
Well, the concept of a double seater privy, I don't know. Family that poops together stays together. I'm not sure how that works. You get company. Okay, come on, let's go take a poop. I don't get it, but for whatever reason, they had double privies.
Well, if you had a big family in the middle of the winter, you don't want to be standing out there waiting your turn.
Well, it's like two bathrooms, It's like, I gotta go. Hurry up. Well, come join me there.
like a Christmas story.
Yeah. What do you got to say, Lisa? You look like
Lisa
you
has,
want to say something.
She's
yeah,
quiet today.
Lisa has to say goodnight because it's I'm where you are, guys.
Oh,
I'm in Ocean County,
okay.
Oh,
What town
okay.
are you in? What town are you in?
Lenoka Harbor.
What
Okay,
is
yeah,
it?
that's right. You're a Jersey
Yeah,
girl.
yep. I'm in Lenoka Harbor. It's right by Forked River.
Oh,
Okay.
you're down there. Nice.
Yeah, yeah, that's where I am, and it's late, and I gotta go to bed. I woke up with a sore throat this morning, and it's just getting
Oh
to
no.
me. So,
What's
yeah,
there's a seafood place down by Forked River, Captain something or other. Do you know which
Captain's
one
Inn,
that is?
Captain's
What is
Inn,
it? Yeah,
Captain's
maybe
Inn.
that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to take my one friend. He has he's an elderly gentleman. He has cousins down there. Yeah, I just read an email before I got on here. He said, "When are we going down to Captain's Inn?" You know, to I told him I would drive him down there. He'll buy me a seafood dinner. So
Oh,
I'll
it's
take
right
him up
down
on
the
that.
road from me.
There you go.
Right down. Yeah.
All right. Have
Okay.
fun.
Good
Okay.
All
night.
right.
Good night.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
Lisa.
Hope you feel better.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. All right. Bye.
All right, man.
Hey, I got bigger.
You filled up more room.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's late for you guys. She says something about staying on. I said, well, don't feel bad. They're from Jersey too, so we're all different, you know. So we won't keep you guys all night long. So
We could talk all night long. Joe and I are
Just-
good. It's only
oh,
9 o'clock.
Just to the wee hours.
yeah. Well, you know, sometimes people say, "Man, I'm on the East Coast. We're a lot different," you know. So
We tend to go long.
yeah. Hey, that's okay. So anybody got any questions? Don't be shy. You guys all
We're not gonna tell you where sites are. Trust me.
no. And some GPS coordinates, and that's where you find. So, how often do you guys get to go out to looking for this stuff? I mean, I know you guys got to have families. Do you just tell every weekend, "Hey, I'm going out," or you got normal jobs and you can only get out once in a while, or?
No, well,
I have
now
a
that
fictitious job.
yeah.
On
Yeah,
Saturdays,
what
a
do you
fictitious
do, Pete?
job.
Pete
What's
never
that?
told me what he does.
Works for the CIA.
I have a big fake tuba in a case. It's actually an empty tuba case, and I go out and play with the band every Saturday morning.
Yeah, right.
I can't play a note, but that's my excuse to get out.
I thought I saw you ringing a bell by the kettle in December.
Yeah.
Now my
But-
in this weather now it gets warmer and the days are longer. Mostly it's the days are longer because cold weather doesn't generally stop us too much. But if you get out after work for a couple of hours in certain spots, we'll get out a little bit early. Both Joe and I are self-employed. We can set our schedules a lot. But the basic day, Sunday is family day. It's always been. Very rarely get out on a Sunday unless it's an event. It's a Saturday, mostly Saturday mornings. We have groups of people. Joe and I go out. We have another group of 3 or 4 of us go out. And we kind of, cliquish, stay with our group. We meet somewhere. We go out, set out. Okay, how about this spot? Talk during the week. And we start, calling by Wednesday. We're starting to make a plan what we're going to do Saturday. So it's kind of a routine that we go through, and it works. We get excited. I start getting excited Sunday night for the next Saturday morning, but don't sleep. Friday nights, never much sleep.
Yeah, it's also spur of the moment too, because you might see them either knock the house down or scraping an area, and you try to get permission, because we look for Indian artifacts too. This area is loaded with Indian artifacts, so whenever they're disturbing the soil, we always try to take a look, especially if they scrape it and it rains. That's the perfect conditions for finding stuff, because it washes the dirt off of a lot of the stones and artifacts and stuff. One of the big exciting things that we found, we identified it a couple of years ago, but then we just recently got it confirmed, is west of us towards Pennsylvania. We have a permission. They have over 100 acres, and they let us come out there and hunt. There's a lot of cellar holes, and there's a lot of big fields where they did sheep farming, raising sheep and stuff. And real nice, like going back in time. The property hasn't changed much, hasn't been developed. And there's stone walls all around the fields. But up on the side of the hill, like the mountain, there's a stone wall, like on this steep slope. And something just didn't sit right. It just didn't, it served no purpose. So I started going on YouTube, looking up different types of stone walls, and most of them follow a European style, the way they place the rocks. And I found out that there's actually a lot of rock walls and stone structures that were found here when the first settlers came over, and they attribute them to the Native American Indians. And sure enough, these walls and structures that we found are Native American Indians, and it's a ceremonial site. It's right alongside of one of the migration trails that goes through the Delaware Water Gap. And on the side of the hill, it's like a 75-foot long snake effigy. It has a big boulder as a head. It faces north-south, and it kind of undulates up and down and kind of like, slithers side to side. It's not a straight wall. And I had an expert from the New England, Stone Wall Association, or whatever they go by. There's a club for just about everything nowadays. And they study Native American structures and ceremonial sites. And sure enough, this site is turning out to be a very early ceremonial site for the Native Americans. And on that site, we thought we found a root cellar. It was on the side of the hill, probably about, 1,000 feet from the snake wall, 'cause it's a big piece of property. And the door on the root cellar, it was like dug into the side of the hill, and it definitely had like timbers and a dirt roof on it, because we started to dig it out, and there's about 4 foot of dirt from the roof that caved into the structure. Now he's looking at it, and he said, well, he goes, the colonial people used it as a root cellar, but this was made by the Native American Indians. He said it's a chamber. And he had an app on his phone that gives you the sunrise and sunset for any specific date. So there's the vernal equinox and the summer solstice. That's like the first day of spring and the first day of winter. And those were real, they've always been important dates because for planting and what have you. He went down and squatted in that root cellar facing east and put I think it was the summer solstice in that, and the sun rises directly in front of that. So the sun would shine into that chamber. So that's one of the exciting projects that we're doing right now, is seeing what else we find on that property, because the more we search around, the more we find these piles of rocks and different anomalies that serve no function for a farmer, but is all part of this ceremonial site.
Joe mentioned that the Karens. Yeah,
there's these, what they do is they take a lot of features that are natural to the site. There's a lot of glacial boulders and rocks, and there's some really big ones, like 6 foot by 3 foot, and they have all rocks stacked on top of it. It almost looks like a grave, but it's and he said it's possible. There's no written history. There's no way of knowing what that is. He said it could be a grave. Maybe they cremated the body elsewhere and then put the ashes on that rock and then covered them with rocks. So there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to the American early history, because being there was no written history per se, other than some cave images and what have you. It's not like Egypt, where they had hieroglyphs and documented stuff.
Papyrus.
Yeah, the North American history was a oral history, so a lot of these structures were only speculating what they could have been used for.
It's a very interesting site. I was a bit of a hard sell on it, but Joe had done tremendous amount of research, tremendous amount of reading, spent a lot of time on it, and was able to convince me on it. And it's phenomenal. It's really phenomenal, because there's just so few of these places really left. A lot of these places may have been more in existence in in the late woodland period or middle woodland periods in the Northeast. But a lot of them could have been dismantled by farmers to make walls for all of that. But it's incredible to find them intact. And Joe nailed it. He was right on it. You know, and I'm somewhat of an expert. So
can you guys see the comments?
Lisa has to go to bed.
No, like, so somebody's asked different questions.
I can't see comments.
Okay, Cottonwood Trails jumped in. Gerald Benson. Let's see. So somebody says, have you detected out west? And
Ohio's about as west as I've gotten.
Yeah, I've been in New Mexico. I detected at the Glorieta battlefield. Few odds and ends, but that's about it as far as west of the Mississippi.
Pete's brother was in New Mexico, Pete?
Yeah, he lived in Albuquerque and he had a ranch in White Oaks.
And one of Pete's hobbies, we both collect stuff. Pete has a lot of artifacts from Little Bighorn and also some artifacts from the Alamo. He's got some great Little Bighorn items. Why don't you discuss the ones that you're comfortable discussing?
What's a Jersey Devil?
That's
Jersey Devil?
Yeah,
that's
Joe, you know that.
That's the chupacabra, the goat sucker.
The Jersey version of the chupacabra.
Yeah, okay. Jersey version of the chupacabra. Now it's every state has a folklore, and
I'm gonna run away a second.
Believe me, we had a speaker at our club that talked on cryptozoology, and cryptozoology is the study of all these different folklores, like the Jersey Devil, the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Yeti. He gave us a fantastic presentation, and usually any kind of myth or legend, there's a little inkling of truth behind it, and then it gets embellished over the years. And the Jersey Devil was supposedly, there was a family in South Jersey where the woman had, she had
the Leeds family.
Lead family. I don't know. She had like a dozen kids or something, and she told her husband she didn't want any more kids, and if she was have another kid, she was going to curse it or something like that. And that's where that story got traction. That supposedly, is that the Jersey Devil you're holding there, Pete?
Yeah, I'm holding little Jersey Devil.
So anyway, I think that started from the Leeds family, that, she had some type of abnormal child and it became demonic.
The legend says that she had a baby. They were in Leeds Point, which is down by the Pine Barrens in South Jersey. I mean, we call it the Pine Barrens. It's like this vast area to us. It's probably the size of a county in Arizona. It's really not that big. But she was evidently had this baby, and the baby like jumped up, screamed, sprouted wings, and flew up the chimney. And that's part of the myth of the story of what happened to the baby. Must have scared the hell out of her, whatever happened, though. So.
Yeah. But they still have bumper stickers and everything else. Every state has something. Bigfoot and Sasquatch covers a lot of states.
Our abominable snowman. Sasquatch.
Yeah.
I guess everybody has that. Gerald Benson, sunny Arizona. Where are you at in Arizona? Freedom country. Yeah, where are you at in AZ? I've heard Colorado has a river ape. I've heard the chupacabras out here too. There's Bigfoot. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen anything but coyotes.
Yeah, coyotes with the mange.
Yeah, we got those here.
Yeah.
Close to New York, and we got coyotes and bear.
We don't have bears.
Pete, I don't know. Did you come down 23 to go home this weekend?
No,
there was a 300-pound black bear laying on the shoulder on 23 on the southbound side. Yeah, and it's funny because there was the bumper from the car right in front of it. Because I saw this big black piece of plastic, and then as I got closer, the bear was like 20 feet in front of it. Wow. So nobody picked it up.
Well, Joe and I were digging at the snake pit one time, and we're not young men. We're all crouched over and our knees hurt, so get up to stretch every once in a while. And I got up and I did a stretch.
Speak for yourself.
What's that? Okay.
Speak for yourself.
So about 30 feet away was a black bear, and it was not a big one, but it was standing up and it was doing like swaying his arms like General Ben on this bear. And I said, Joe, and Joe looked over, grabbed the shovel, and then the bear just kind of made its way off. But what was so striking about it is that it was so black. I mean, it was really stuck out as being just jet black thing in the middle of the green and the grays of the forest. It's amazing.
Yeah, he must have just got done sprucing up by the river because he was very clean.
Oh, he's totally shiny, well groomed. We see him. And coyotes. I was not too far from my house. I saw a coyote not too long ago. Yeah, we hear him. We hear him yipping and yapping in the night.
We don't have weird stuff out here.
No.
You
got to realize we're close to New York City. We have a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, it's too hot out here for anybody to survive. The only thing I hear people say, whenever I say, they say go to hell, I say, you know what? I live in Arizona. I've already been
there.
You know, when it's 120 degrees here, what the hell, you know? So.
Wow.
I love my heat.
I guess you have to.
I don't mind the heat. I don't like sleeping in it, but I could take the heat.
Yeah, I can't take cold. I just cannot.
No, me neither. Ugh.
I hate cold so bad.
It would surprise to hear us say that we don't like the cold because we're in the freezing weather. We're out detecting. We're out doing stuff.
Yeah, that doesn't stop it.
It's hard when I make an excuse to my wife. I say, no, it's too cold to go stack wood. It's too cold to do this or that.
Even during COVID, it was great because there was no one doing anything. So we went up to the one pulp dump that we like up in New York State. And what was there? 4 or 5 of us. We spent the day digging. We're coming back, carpooling in the car. This was on a Saturday. Monday morning, Pete calls us up and said, "Hey, I tested positive for COVID." So I don't think any of us came down with it though, but
3 times I was positive for
I didn't want to tell you earlier, but I figured I'd tell you on the way back. Yeah.
Well, you got to tell.
I didn't want to ruin all your hunts.
Yeah,
we did lose one of our club members, a good friend of Joe and mine, Tony Camarelli. He died of COVID.
It wasn't from that weekend, but that was a shame because he was with us that weekend. But that was a little bit after that took place. But that was a real shame.
Yeah, I think with the thousands of people that died, we probably all had somebody or knew somebody that lost during those times and stuff like that. So, Cottonwood's cooler. You're up there in the cooler. I know a few people live up in Cottonwood. You guys are up in the cooler country down up there.
So, Jack, you get people from all over the place calling in or watching?
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, that I saw the furthest I thought said whatever I said, New Zealand or something.
Holy cow!
I saw somebody from New Zealand. Why don't you guys all post where you're from? Or if you got any questions, just feel free to jump right on in there with those fantastic questions that you got. We're taking callers. Wayne Peterson, guess who's here? Hello. Wayne's in Colorado. Somebody said something about being back in Jersey. Somebody else here. Let's see. Well, who was that said that? Somebody I think is in Wisconsin.
They're all over the place.
Yeah. There's like there's California, yay. Jim's out there in Cottonwood Trails. Where's that? I forgot. Was that Indiana or Alabama? I forgot where that's at. Anyways, yeah, you guys, they're all over the world. All over the world. Brad's, I think, is in Utah. We don't hold that against you. Michigan, somebody. Citrus Heights, California. Vermont, 802 Prospecting. Claude Hopper. here in Arizona.
Jack, you talked about coming this way.
I did. One day I say I'm going to make this journey because I missed out on the times when I could have went in and hunted Civil War artifacts, and I get in more of the treasures. I like to hunt treasures probably more so than hunting gold, because it's just, I don't know, it's that history. I enjoy that history and I love that. So I want to make it one day. I say, I got people, I got to go to Virginia, the Civil War there, and Indiana. And I just figured I got to make this big jaunt and just come right up into.
Yeah, you're always welcome to come up. You can come stay by us.
Yeah, definitely. A couple months ago, down on the Jersey Shore, we had a couple, windy storms that caused some beach erosion and some stuff to move around. And somebody that was beachcombing came across, there was bottles of whiskey from the Prohibition that was washing up, still sealed in the old bottles, and you can see the whiskey inside them. And the one picture I saw on Facebook from one of the other clubs down south in South Jersey, the guy had like 4 of them lined up on the beach there that he found that had washed up. So there must have been a couple crates or a ship, something that went overboard out in the ocean, that the crates finally broke up, and the stuff is starting to, because you have a little bit of an air bubble in the bottle, probably enough to get it to go semi-buoyant. So I thought that was pretty cool, because I was down in Delaware, in Fenwick, Delaware. There's the Discovery Sea Museum, and Dale Clifton was 18 years old when he was diving for Mel Fisher when they hit the mother lode. And whatever, if you were a diver back then, they basically just gave you kind of like room and board. I don't know if you got much money, probably just enough if you went in on the weekend to go into town, but I think he worked on somewhat of a percentage, and he hit the mother lode. And after that, he started his own salvage company, and he has a museum down there in Fenwick. So I'm friends with him. I've been down there a few times. And if you go in the museum, beautiful museum on the second floor of a gift shop type mall that he has. He took out one of those wedding chains, which is about 10 foot long. It's all links of gold. And there was 4 of us, Tony Rago, Andy Blessing, Gene Brissett, I think Mark was there, and Mark Stevie and myself. We had that, took a picture with the wedding chain over our shoulders, and then he took out like a 2-finger bar. That's when they scratch like 2 fingers in the wet sand and pour a gold bar, and then there was some discs. He said we were holding about $250,000 worth of gold. We took a beautiful picture. But then he took out from another wreck that he had dove on, he had coconut rum. And he took it out and he gave you just covered the bottom of a shot glass. There's no way. He said, you're not going to take a shot of this because it's like diesel fuel. I mean, it's like, I forget what the proof was on it, but he explained what the sensation you would have when you take that little bit. You take it in your mouth, you could feel the heat of it going down your throat, and then you have a rush to your head. And that little bit, you would get a buzz from that little bit, and you taste the coconut. He dove this wreck that had bottles of, from the late 1700s, bottles of coconut rum that were still sealed. And he sold quite a few of them, and then he kept a good amount of them because he'll open one up every once in a while. And he said that whole bottle will last him a year, giving people samples here and there. But you have to ask him for it. It's not everybody that comes through the museum, but if you ask him, he'll go in the back and he'll give you a little shot of that. What's that?
And that's where at?
That's in Fenwick, Delaware, Fenwick Isle. That's just it's about 5 miles north of Ocean City, Virginia. So really, really cool museum. He has those museums, they share stuff from museum to museum. He had some Titanic artifacts. He had some Lusitania stuff. And then he had stuff from the Atocha that he salvaged. Really interesting museum.
There's, I see Bobby Bunzel, Tim Fisher. You know, over where Tim's at, I don't know if you heard, he's over on your neck of the woods on the East Coast, someplace over there, Georgia. I'm not sure where exactly at, but he found that old dredge on his property, a sunken dredge they're digging up.
Wow,
dredge.
that's cool. That's cool. Hopefully they left a couple sacks of dust or nuggets on that when it went down.
I don't know.
You know, another story about the rum, a quick one. I was pretty young, maybe I was about 20, and I was staying in my grandfather's house in Nassau in the Bahamas. And my family used to, amongst rum running and blockade running and all this stuff, different things connecting to making money off whatever America had going on, the United States had going on. And one of the things that my family was involved with was liquor business. They used to sell to the rum runners, to the whiskey boats. And that was back in the 30s or the 20s. But when I was in my early 20s, poking around the buildings behind my grandfather's house, you know, very tropical, very picturesque and beautiful. I went into one of the buildings and there was cases, still cases of brandy from that era sitting in the corner covered with dust, you know.
Wow.
That. And I took a bottle or two home. I don't remember. I think someone stole it or something because people came in the house one day for whatever party and stuff was gone. But it was original, you know, rum runner brandy. To me, that's a relic. That's an artifact. Anything's an artifact to me if it's over 10 years old. So,
well, then shit, we're all artifacts then.
Yeah.
I got books that are older than that, you know. Yeah. Everything's older than 10 years. Hell, I got a reel-to-reel that's older than 10 years.
Reel. Wow.
But
you
got a lava lamp back there too, right?
No, but if I had one, I would have it sitting here though. But I used to have one. You know, I was cleaning stuff up last week and I came across this old Radio Shack black and white little portable television. And I took a picture of it and I sent it to my brother because we both got one of these probably 40 years ago. And he said, "You never throw nothing away." He said, "I can't believe you're throwing that away." I said, "Yeah, I'm finally going to part with it."
Joe never throws anything away.
No, yeah. I got a good collection of stuff.
You know, from Mile High. Oh, that's got to be in Colorado. Junction. Where's Grasshopper Junction? I never heard of that.
It's up by Petticoat Junction.
Yeah, Petticoat Junction. Woo, woo.
Oh man, we're gonna get a visitor in 2 seconds.
You're getting a visitor?
Yeah, the cat. Look.
Oh, the Chupacabra's back.
I want to be on TV.
That's my main
be
coon.
famous. So let me ask you guys, what's your best find that you guys think you have found throughout all your time in history? What's the most, probably the biggest thing that you guys found, or the most important thing, or the thing you're most proud of finding?
Go ahead, Pete.
That's a double answer. It's got to be what's the best thing you ever found in terms of value and what means the most to you. I think that's the way most people would prefer to look at it, probably. I found the George Washington inaugural button. That's probably one of the big holy grails. And like we said earlier, if you found one snake buckle, you'd be delighted. Of course, we've done it 100 times. But my inaugural button is probably the most collectible, probably one of the most valuable things in terms of that. And something I feel that I would like. Oh my God. Every Indian artifact I find, every point I find is my favorite for a little while. I mean, you know, you can't even put a finger on so much stuff.
Yeah, that's a tough one because there's so many different categories. Probably when it comes to beach hunting, I found a 1.5-carat diamond ring, and I found a really heavy gold chain with a pendant on it, and it's kind of a tie. I probably will go with the gold chain because diamonds are expensive to buy, but try to sell when you don't get anything for them. So gold chain, I think, stands out as one of my bucket list favorite finds. But then a lot of the other stuff that we found, it's kind of a tie. But the one thing that stands out, because I was just talking with the one Bloomingdale historian, and there was up on the edge of our town there's a sand pit, and up on the top, the halfway up the mountain that you get to it from the other side was this Windbeam Tavern. And it goes back to, maybe around the turn of the century, not 2000, but 1900. You have to be careful now when you say turn of the century, because people think it's like 25 years ago. We're the old timers that, I don't remember 1900, but we refer to turn of the century.
Ago? Wow.
Yeah, as 1900. But it was during Prohibition, it was a speakeasy. It was always rumors that it was a speakeasy. So it burnt down somewhere in the 80s. It burnt down, and it's just all relics up there. Well, about 10 years ago, I went metal detecting up there. I think I found a V-nickel. There was some Wheaties, and there was a lot of lead and copper jacketed slugs, because below the hill, lower down, is the police shooting range, and they shoot into the side of the sand pit, and they hit a rock here and there, and there's ricochets all over the place. So they must have been popping up over the top of the hill, because they were all over the place. But I get we're close to where I found the V-nickel. About 6 inches away from that, I get a pretty big hit, and I dig down, and it was it looked like a paint can with a lid on it. Down about 6 inches. So with all the roots and stuff, I cleared away it, was able to pop the lid off of it. And inside of it were brass miner checks. They're like they're like a brass token with a number stamped on them. Half of them were around the size of a $50, and the other half were the size of a quarter. And you find those metal detecting, you always find brass tags with numbers and stuff on them, and they usually have like a little 3/16 inch hole in them. And they were used for like tool inventory, tying them on a bale, just for identification purposes. But a miner check has like a 3/8 of an inch hole on it. And from what I was told is, if you were a miner, say you were mining coal, you had a pocket of them all with your number on it. And when you go in the mine, you put your brass tag on the board so that people know that you're in the mine. And then every cart that you sent out, you put one of your checks on it, so you get credit for whatever you mined. So finding those, after I asked somebody, and I told them I found them at the Windbeam, they said that's most likely what they were using. Down in town, they would sell you that brass tag for 50 cents or whatever a drink was. Then you went up to the speakeasy and you put the brass tag on the bar, and he gave you a shot of whiskey, or he gave you malt beer or something like that. You weren't exchanging money. So if the revenuers raided the bar, there was no money being exchanged for the drinks. So I was telling this to the historian, and he wants to get a picture of it, because he put out a history book, and he mentioned about how that was a speakeasy. And he says, you may have been the only one that has physical evidence that confirmed that was truly a speakeasy, because there are no mines anywhere close by. Maybe 5-10 miles up the road, there's some iron mines, but it was just odd that there was a whole bucket of brass tags at the site of that speakeasy. So that's has a good story, and those always stand out as probably one of the most interesting things with the story behind it that I found.
It's all about the story and the coins.
Yeah. But I must have found about 100 of them in that bucket, though. There was a lot of them.
Everybody's phone's dinging.
My grandfather, again, lived in Nassau in the Bahamas, and the family property was basically where about Blackbeard and all those the part of the port where the pirates all stayed. We all were. It's been depicted on Netflix and things like that. But when I was also in my early 20s, I used to poke around this gravel backyard area, the lot where I guess they used to do sponge and liquor and all that. And used to find gun flints, which I always thought when I was that age, I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, pirate and British gun flints. So,
Well, you also found that
one of my
one
favorite things.
a couple years ago in Eagle Rock. You found the French flint with the lead around it.
I found the French flint for the Charleville musket, which was basically the gun that was used a lot. The French gun that was used in the American Revolution. Honey-colored flint is very indicative of a French gun flint. I found, like Joe just said, I found one flint with the lead around. Why I found it with the detector is because when they put the piece of flint in the cock screw and they screwed the screw down on it, if it was brittle, it could shatter, and especially in the action of the hammer striking the frizzen pan, it could shatter. So they commonly encased them in lead, and that would kind of make a little bit of a buffer so they could tighten it down and hold the gun flint in the cock, in the hammer, a lot better. And I found one of those. Just got this hit and said, "This looks like piece of lead," and saw the gun flint in it. I thought that was really cool. Really cool. Tells a story.
As you're saying that, I just remembered. I do estate sales and house clean outs, and one of the ones in town, I have the documentation. There was a little case, and let me see if I find it. Little case, and there was a tag in here that it was found in 1950 in the garden. This is a piece of French flint right there. It's the honey colored.
Oh yeah, that's
they use
definitely
it for?
French flint.
That was in a flintlock. That's what strikes the frizzen pan and creates the spark. But that's the color. This is a French flint because what the note says in here, this thing was in this little plastic box, and the note says late 18th century gun flint found by Jean in the back garden, and it gives the street address. Street address circa 1950. Provisionally identified as a form of Revolutionary War era. From the Revolutionary War era, neighborhood was encampment for Rochambeau. And it's true. It's Rochambeau camped probably about quarter mile from where this was found. So they must have been roaming around the area, foraging and what have you. So
General Rochambeau was like a Lafayette sort of a character from France
Yeah.
that helped the American Revolution.
So Paul says, did you find the outhouse by the speakeasy?
no, you know what? I actually didn't because the whole area, there was the house and there was like a garage and a lot of outbuildings. Somebody went up there with a dozer and kind of pushed a lot of the stuff after the fire into a pile. So a lot of the areas were kind of disturbed because the area where it most likely would have been was probably where a lot of that debris was all piled up. But you know what? The outhouses you generally want to find bottles before 1920. You know, that outhouse was probably a little too new, because you want to find the ones from colonial times, because most of your bottles before 1900, especially when you start getting around the Civil War and whatever, then you're talking nice bottles. Because once you get into the late teens, early 20s, you start getting the screw top bottles, and they're mass produced. Too many. There's a lot of interesting ones, but value wise, you want the early whiskey flasks, the soda bottles, the early Hodgkins. You know, there's a lot more value in the bottles, and a lot more rare as you get around the Civil War and earlier.
What about there's two terms that I only hear back east, and that's, or I guess out here people are doing it too, but magnet fishing and mudlarking.
Yeah, the mudlarking is fun. You don't know what you're going to find.
What did you get
with
in
the
the
mud
mud?
wrecker. Yeah, yeah, no, it's you got to hit the right conditions and stuff. But the magnet fishing, basically, I've done it. We did it a little bit by your shop, Pete, and we
Yeah.
found some railroad spikes and stuff from the railroad because that was right next to it. But really, your bucket list there is to find like a
Machine
little
gun.
strong,
A machine
yeah,
gun.
yeah, be in Germany is a gun basically, but either
Yeah.
either a little fireproof, like security box or something like that may have been.
Mm.
But most people, unless you're being chased by the police, you're not going to throw the box in there until you open it. So I'm always questioning when they're finding these metal boxes with a lot of money in it, because why did they throw it in there? They could have just
Yeah.
opened it up. But guns are the bucket listers,
Yeah.
because
It's pretty
pretty much
common to
anything
throw
else
things
is,
off the bridges too. It's pretty common
yeah.
for people to throw
Well,
loot.
then
Not even that, but
here's the thing for you guys. So being in this camp where I'm at here, I was in town one day. This was a couple years ago, and I ran into this guy talking to him, and he says, "Oh, you're out there, blah blah." And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Next door, there was a guy that stayed over there, and he came over on your property, over by where your well tanks are, and he buried some machine guns." And he
Ooh.
said, and so I said, "Well, I wouldn't know where." And he said, "Well, they're near the water tanks." So I've kind of gone out there, but there's so much trash and old metal little pieces of shards from pipings. It's just all deteriorated. I have no clue where they would have been at. But he said they were there, and he said, "I don't want anything to do with them." And the guy that buried them, apparently he's in prison. And so he said he ain't coming back to get them. But he told me there were some machine guns buried on this property. So
Wow, it's a good
you guys want to come
possibility.
get 'em?
Hopefully he put them in, wrapped them up in oily rags, or put them in something that they're intact.
Vaseline.
But even if they weren't, they make fantastic wall hangers. But you know what? The thing is, I don't know what the regulations are out there, but in Jersey, you have to cut the receiver out. You have to weld a block into them. You got to ruin them to own them.
You can't just
So
plug them up. You have to remove sections in order to make them what they call a DWAT, or no more than just a paperweight. But you can never be able to just knock a part out and have it again.
Yeah, I don't
But
think
you can. I
have
mean, Arizona's a Class 3 state. I think you can own them, but
Yeah,
you
I
have to
don't
go
think-
to the proper
them. Yeah, I don't
channels.
think you can have machine guns.
No, New Mexico you can.
Yeah, I think they've
There's some Class 3 states that if you go to the proper channels, you can,
Yeah,
you can own automatic.
probably owned by
weapons.
Bonnie and Clyde, and there probably has a history.
yeah. Now, how cool would
that?
that be if they were Tommy guns or something? But you don't know what they are. They could be Uzis or something.
I
Did you
don't.
watch
Yeah, I have no.
1923 on Sunday night? Oh my God. Cowboys using 1923 using Tommy guns in gunfights.
Oh,
Well, the only
jeez.
thing I've gone out there because I kind of thought if he buried them, the ground may have sunk a little bit. So maybe I look for sunken ground, but then there's some trees that you just can't get up inside. And so I thought, back then maybe he could have buried them underneath the trees. And who
Yeah, well,
knows
chances are they're going to be by something, because if you just bury something randomly, you're never going to find it. You have to put it next to something. I don't think if he's in jail, he probably wasn't smart enough to triangulate it off of 3 objects. So it is probably close to something, some type of permanent thing. And did they know how long ago it was, or I guess you're talking more modern times?
Well, my understanding was he could have buried them 5-10 years ago.
Okay.
Well, because this place was empty. I mean, so it had to be probably even in the 90s, sometime probably after in the 90s. So we're talking maybe 20, 30 years ago.
Well, I wonder if any of his clients are close to the guns too.
Oh, man. Don't know, man. There was a guy that came out here one time, and he had one of them devices that you stuck on the ground. He had an iPad, and he would punch the ground, then he'd move to try to triangulate or whatever, trying to pinpoint voids or something underground. But
Okay, yep.
we never did find anything though. So,
well, some of it you may not want to find.
no, but you never know what's out. I mean, because this place was homesteaded in the late 1800s, 1862. I have found three ringers, with the cones
Oh,
out
that's
back.
cool.
I found part of Powderhorn, but tax tokens, just stuff like that, out here. So
Yeah, well, people did bury. What's the name of that? That ridge hoard where the homeowners found a couple cans of all those gold coins uh, over there. That was people, especially with the depression, and if you were homesteading and you weren't close to a bank, you kept your money there.
oh yeah,
Not everybody put money in banks.
no,
Joe,
no.
what was the story with Ernie about the person that was ripping out their rhododendrons and gold coins started
Oh
popping out?
yeah. One of the members in our club used to have. He had a job at it was an electronics store where they sold metal detectors, and he was pretty well known, established business. And Ernie was working there, and a guy came in, and they would rent you a metal detector. This was going back probably 20 years ago. They would rent you a White's or a Garrett or something, and $25 a day or whatever it was. So a guy came in and rented a machine, and then like 2 days later, he came back and he wanted to rent another one. So he recognized him and he said, "What are you looking for?" And he puts his hand in his pocket and he takes out a gold coin, like a $10 gold coin. He said he's a landscaper and he bought a house in Clifton area. And in that area, the houses are relatively close together. And the houses go back to the 20s, maybe even a little older than that. And he bought the house from a widow, and he was going to move into it. It was like a starter home, and he was a landscaper, he was ripping out all the old evergreen bushes and rhododendrons and stuff all around the base of the foundation. So he's on the backhoe pulling the bushes out, and his guys are dragging the stuff away, and they're kind of raking the stuff, and all of a sudden they start finding gold coins. So he got the detector, and he found more than a dozen of them. And what they speculated was that somebody somewhere along the line early on, because I think he found a couple like St. Gordon's, the $20, $10, a lot of $5 ones. Somebody buried some type of cash close to the foundation, and those for whatever reason, either the person died or forgot about. I don't see how people forget about burying gold coins unless you go senile. Chances are he had a heart attack and the wife never knew where they were, or the previous owner buried them there. But as they were grading out the yard, they were turning up. So he had that detector and he went and got another one, figuring, they got to comb the whole thing. So Ernie convinced the guy to have him come out because this guy never used a metal detector before and he's finding them. So Ernie's figuring they're missing a lot of them. I'm going to find a bunch more. And sure enough, I think they found like 30 gold coins in that yard. And they kind of got dragged all over the place because, he had ripped the grass up and he was, grading everything out. And Ernie was pretty confident that they found them all. But chances are if there was any little fractional ones, any like $2.50 or dollar ones in that cash, they're probably still in that yard, and who knows how many the bigger ones got buried deeper out of the range. But those are the stories you like to hear where somebody comes across a nice cache or stuff like that.
Well,
On the other end of that type of story, a guy came in my shop. I was doing some work for him years ago, and we were talking about metal detecting, and the topic came up as usual. And he asked me, "Because can you find gold with a metal detector?" And I said, "Yeah, any kind of metal." And he went on to explain it was a 1700s house in the town two or three towns away called Mendham. He said when they were kids, his brothers and sisters went into the father's dresser drawer, whatever it was, and he had a bunch of gold coins, and they took them all out in the backyard and they played pirate, and they buried them and they hid them and all that stuff. And he said they never found them. And I went back up there, driving by the house to see what was going on. They had sold it. It was bulldozed. It was bulldozed down. They never.
What didn't they find? His brother? They didn't find his brother after his father found out?
He said the father was, of course, pissed, but he said that they never found the coins. So, But he asked me if a metal detector works on gold. I'm like, yeah, it can.
No, it doesn't. But if you tell me where they are,
Yeah.
I got some special.
I have a
You know,
special machine for that.
there's rumors out here that somebody. Well, they I guess it's not rumors. It was true that over by the Superstitions, there was a guy that homesteaded there, and when they graded the road, I guess they must have hit one of his stashes. And apparently, these were stashed all over the place. But all these coins, silver and gold coins, started popping up all over the place, and there's just so
Wow.
much trash over there. And there's a story. So I used to have some mining claims. Probably, they're probably like maybe 30 miles from here. And we went out there several times and, played around, get a little bit of color here or there. But last year, there was a story that I think it was in the paper or the internet or something. Somebody was out there on that road, and the road kind of dead ends, and they were out there screwing around and looked up on the side of the hill and for some reason crawled up there and removed some rocks. And there was cans or bottles or something full of gold frickin' coins.
Wow.
And thought, man, and we used to play out there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. So you guys,
back then.
you guys are out there where there are more gold coins. Out here, they did circulate, if people wanted to stash them or whatever. But I think there were more transactions with gold coins out by you. The couple that have been found out here in the club, one guy saw an outhouse in the woods, saw where somebody had dug the outhouse, and he went around with the metal detector and he found a $5 gold coin. That came in, and then I've heard a couple people have found them on church properties, where people might have had them in their pocket and pulled a hanky out or something. But there was 3 of them found on a farm 2 years ago, because in the club in 20 years, that one that was found by the outhouse pile in the woods was the only gold coin that ever came in the finds of the month in our club. And then we had 1 month where we had 2 gold coins were found in 1 month by two of the members. And the theory with that is because we've hunted one of the fields where we found a lot of silver coins and little pieces of jewelry, keys, is the cities around here. New York, Philadelphia, Newark, Jersey City, all the big cities, a lot of them had cobblestone streets. And I just recently saw an article. I came across it on Facebook, and it was printed out of, I don't know if it was some research out of one of the newspapers or something, that they said in 1895 in New York City, there was 150,000 horses on the streets at any given day. And they said that's about 40,000 gallons of urine. And they gave how many thousands of pounds of horse manure were in the streets. It was a constant effort to constantly be, they had sanitation crews just constantly shoveling the streets, trying to get it out of there, because of the stench and the spread of disease and everything else. And what they said in the article was that the farmers, they would shovel the stuff up, cart it out of the city, and they would sell it to the farmers for manure, for the farms. So anything that was dropped in the streets got shoveled up at that horse manure and got spread out on the farms. And we hunted one farm in central Jersey. People said they've been hunting it for 20 years. It was county property, but they leased it out to a farmer, and he grew a lot of greens like cabbages and lettuces and stuff like that, and different root crops and everything else. And he would disc it every once in a while. So every year it was, the ground was disturbed. And Pete, you found some half times there.
Oh yeah,
there were
found
coppers. A lot of cool stuff came out of that. Yeah, and for years we couldn't figure out why is there, this is a big field. This is like 20, 30 acre farm. And every corner of that field we found coins. And it couldn't have been from a farm stand or anything like that. It's not the people picking
no, it's very
crops,
random. It's
because
all over the place.
back then, 1900, 10 cents was a lot of money. You weren't picking carrots and carrying 10 cents in your pocket that you could lose. So it definitely came from the streets, from the horse manure that was shoveled up and brought out there. So that's another, and those gold coins came from a different farm, and they theorized the same thing because they found quite a few other coins, all dated like pre-automobile. So it would be during the horse and buggy age, the age of the coins.
Well,
One
that
very
shook everything out
telltale
of their
thing.
pockets.
One very telltale thing is somebody found it. What New York City police badge, right? Out there,
Yeah,
Joe?
yeah,
It was a New York
Yep.
City. Yeah.
yeah. So really interesting finds, though. That was a lot of fun.
But it was so many coins, and people were hunting it forever. Like I said, so many. And then one day, the police showed up, and we all got basically rounded up, brought back to the police cars, and spoken to, and then it was over. It was pretty
Well,
much
that's
over.
when they started to convert it to a golf course. So that's when they had the heavy machinery and stuff there. They didn't want anybody out there. So that was the end of it.
What about old theaters, outdoor movie houses and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, the drive-in movies. I've never hunted because the couple that are close to me, there's BJ's or Walmart where they used to be. So unless you got there when they were doing the site work, there's one that's still left up in Warwick, Lower New York State, that's still active. But
It's the
I'm
only
sure
one
those
around,
were,
right? It's the only
yeah,
one.
I'm sure they were full of Mercury dimes. Everybody you give your kid a dime to go get popcorn, and he comes back 5 minutes later because he dropped it in the dark.
Yeah. Well, I heard there. I mean, I've hunted some when I was back in Michigan. A guy was telling me that they're hard to find when you're in the fields, but you got to find them humps because
Yeah,
the humps
for the cars.
where they had the stuff at, or where the candy shack or the thing was up on the hump, and
Yeah.
Yep.
and yeah. But so what, you guys, I've always thought when you hear about, when I'm driving by and I'll see old farmhouses or old houses, well, just like out here, which we don't have a lot of that, but back in the days, you mentioned it earlier, people didn't believe in banks, and so they buried the stuff in their yards. And you guys back there with all that grass and people's backyards, I mean, God, you can have a heyday just looking for coins and stuff,
Yeah, we are fortunate because we're right 25 miles from New York City, and really the bucket list places for metal detecting is New York City, Boston, Philadelphia. There was a lot of people. Back in 1800s, those cities had a couple million people. So we are fortunate that there was a lot of population here, because we had one of our members that moved to Texas for like 3 years, and he complained. He says, it is so hard to find any old coins, because it was just not as settled. It's not to say that you still can't, because down by you probably can find Spanish coins, because they kind of migrated their way up from South America in that area. And San Francisco, that has a history. Pretty much anywhere you find the old settlements, but we just have a very high population from early time.
New York area historically runs very deep. We find colonial coins, King George the First, King George the Second. We find old coppers. The colonial history is pretty deep here. I mean, you look, what are we, 400 years probably of inhabitation here?
Yeah.
Living here longer, maybe in some cases, but still.
Started
You
back
find
there.
shoe buckles that are that old.
Yeah. No, you guys started back there and worked its way west. If it wasn't for the gold, there's gold being found out west.
Right.
We would all still be living back there.
But that's what you have. You have the caches of gold coins out by you, because that's right where they were digging it out. So
they were paid in gold coins a lot, and I've never found a gold coin. I found some cool coins, but I've never found a gold coin. I've never found a miner's token where they paid in miner's tokens and different things like that. There's a lot of things I'd love to find, but I detected in Utah one time. I detected a guy. We tried to find this old CC camp, and we had a hard time finding it. But man, then I found one of them old eagle things that were on the pins, I guess, from the Army days, and
Oh, nice.
but, I like I said, I enjoy history. I'd rather detect that type of stuff. I get a better thrill unearthing history than I would. No, oh, gee, that's just a piece of gold, big deal.
I love coins.
Yeah, I want some coins. I want gold coins.
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 Yeah.
I want coins.
Seeded coins.
I don't want no stinking gold. I found enough gold. Yeah. Hey, I found enough gold that I paid for my 6,000 with the gold I found with that 6,000.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, nice.
That's
I
always a
found
good
enough gold
story.
to pay for my gold monster too. And
Nice.
I had a
What's that,
7,000.
Dredge?
I never found any, so I sold it.
What's the gold monster, like the sleuth?
No, the gold monster, Mine Lab Gold Monster.
Oh, mine lab gold monster.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. It's same with the 6,000. GPS
Okay.
6,000. So, yeah, they call me Mr. Mind Lab.
There you go. You got the shirt. Yep. No, they make a good machine. That's how they made their name, though, is with what was in Australia, right?
Yeah.
Their parent company. So they must have found a lot of nuggets with those machines out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Roland 6,000 now. I traded it to Roland, then I had to get another one. This one hasn't paid for itself yet, my new one, but I'm working on it. But anyways, it's all, you got to have the right machine to go do what you want. If you're going underwater, you got to have an underwater machine, like an old Garrett or Mind Lab or something. Depends what you want to do. If you're going golfing, you got to have the best golf clubs. If you're going fishing, you got to have the best lures and all of that.
Yep.
Yeah, you can catch fish with any lure you throw out there, but yet you stand a better chance if you have the right equipment. So
We hear that often. People say, my father bought a metal detector, used it in the yard, didn't find anything. Say, what did he buy? I don't know. Something with a B, a bounty something.
yeah, bounty hunter.
It's a $150 machine. What are you going to find? You might find
Yeah.
your car, like I said before, but who the hell knows?
It's a hubcap finder.
Yeah, right.
Yes. No, somebody
Good
came in
luck.
here a few weeks ago and they said, yeah, I got this machine. Can you show me how to find some gold? I said, sure, bring it on in. Man, it was like a White's Classic or something. I said, dude, you ain't gonna find no gold with that thing. I said, it's
US
gonna
Army.
be a nugget this size to find it,
Yeah.
So I'm running
Some
gold.
of the earliest guys, the big artillery guys that hunted Civil War artillery, a lot of those early guys started out in the early 50s or late 40s with literally surplus minesweeper machines. What do you call them?
Yeah.
Yeah, minesweepers. That they would start out with these massive machines, and they would in those days, they would find themselves dozens of cannonballs and shells a day because no one had but done that yet in those early days. There's books written about that, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, that must have been fun to get on a Civil War battle before anybody else
Yeah.
did it.
We're lucky
Yeah.
if we find a site that no one's detected at. I mean, that's a quest for a lot of us, but it's very tough to find those places now.
There was this place out here that people invited me to. They found this hole in the ground and they didn't know what it was. And it had a lid on it, like a tin can lid that would open and close. And it went down. We snuck a camera down there. It went down probably 15 feet. So then they started digging into it, thinking it was an air shaft or something. But metal detecting around there found a bunch of military cans, the old sea rations that they buried. And then we found a couple of these. They were dummy mines or dummy landmines, I guess they are. They're flat and they're kind of round. And then some. So then I come to the conclusion that hole in the ground, what we call the mystery hole, must have been a flagpole where they stuck their flag down inside this hole or something.
Oh,
But
no.
apparently the Army General or Patton was all over out in this area, and I haven't really detected around there,
Well, Pete, your brother found a bomb shelter, right? In his backyard?
Right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, they found some sort of a Cold War era bomb shelter, and it was covered up, and they sent the camera down in it. And I have to speak to my nephew to find out exactly what happened with that.
He said that might be somewhere that's on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if it's lost. Yeah, your brother. You remember he told me that he had put it on YouTube. I don't know what it's under, but in the backyard there was he said there was like a bush, and I guess he went to
Yeah.
cut the bush down, and that's where the either the air shaft or whatever
Right.
to get into it. And he took the back then I think they just tied the phone on a rope or something. It was real primitive. He didn't
Yeah.
have like a
Yeah.
GoPro or anything.
Right.
And
Right.
lowered it down there, and you could see there was like like a bunk bed, and there was like supplies or something. It was
Yeah.
that Cold War type thing.
Yeah, I have to
So
talk to his
those
son.
are cool
I
to
don't
find.
I don't speak to my brother anymore because he died 8 years ago scuba diving.
Yeah.
So that's a lost cause. But his son might know more about that. Might have some. I used to talk to Wyatt.
Yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be cool if you could see the whatever he filmed on that.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be neat. I'll give Wyatt a call. Forgot about that.
It's all good. There's a mine shaft out here. I sent a GoPro down a while back, and it looked to me like there was some like Spanish tools, like a pair of scissors or something that was leaning up against the rock at the bottom. And this guy says, "Yeah, I'll rappel down there and get this stuff." But then when the GoPro is kind of turning, you see this creature sitting there, and it's looking around, and it was an owl. And so I'm assuming this owl was sitting on babies, and that's why it was sitting hunting down. And he said, "I ain't going down there with that owl down there." So that owl would tear him apart. You get down there around babies or something,
Yeah.
Maybe that's the Mothman. That's another cryptozoology feature. There is the Mothman.
Yeah. So that's a chore. So there's a few things out here they're chasing, trying to get. I've been chasing this Spanish thing that I think there's some Spanish stuff buried up on the hill and just crap like that.
A lot of times those things come true. I mean, a lot of times they're not just myths, they find things.
Yeah, there was a guy telling me several years ago about that a friend of his, or they heard people find some Spanish swords. And so we went out there and looked all over, couldn't find anything, but found, like old mine shafts. And then a couple of years ago, I was out there looking around and I saw some stacked up rocks and metal detecting where I pulled out these old coins. And last year, when I went to the rendezvous thing, the treasure hunters, they told me, somebody said they were 1663 face coins, whatever that really meant. I really don't know. They were hammered. Oh. But then right there was this Inca doll came out.
Oh,
and
cool.
They told me that was pre-Columbian on this Aztec-looking doll thing, So I haven't been back there to explore anymore because there's got to be a lot more crap up in there too. So,
yeah, that sounds like a good spot.
We have a few things like that, but not like you guys have. You guys got all the cool stuff, man.
It's getting harder to find though, because
it is.
Like I say, you got to get on private properties, and there's a lot of competition because a lot of people got in the hobby with the Oak Island and some of these shows. Got a lot of people interested in treasure hunting.
The Diggers.
The Diggers, yeah.
Most of the people, Tim and George, got a lot of people going.
Yeah.
Why I know a few people myself that watched them and got going.
Well, you mentioned that you showed that magazine, American Digger, a few years ago. We were in that magazine, a bunch of gold nuggets that we'd found out here on the hill.
Oh, really?
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got in a nugget patch and found some nice big nuggets up on the.
If you find some things like that you'd like to get in, just give me a call and forward, because I'm on the staff. I write a column.
Oh.
So
cool.
we, they're always looking for interesting stuff to put in.
Okay.
Yeah, if Pete forwards it to Butch, you're almost guaranteed you're going to get in, because no, seriously, because a lot of the people in our club, they find nice button, nice coin, something like that, and Pete forwards it, but like I say, Butch is always looking for even interesting articles. You really got to scramble when you have a magazine like that for content.
Write something about what you do. If you write an article, I've never seen any prospecting things in there. That might be something you could get in pretty easily. A decent article.
That was, I think, last year or once something the year before, a couple years ago, maybe they had all the pictures of the gold and that. But we had the mining journal out here. They just shut down a print, last year. That
Oh, it's too bad.
I know finally wrote a couple articles for them, and then they end up shutting down, which was too bad. So,
Well,
but
think
Yeah,
about it.
I would send them to Butch because he's got a nice publication,
Yeah.
and
yeah,
it-
I'll do that. Anyways, I know it's getting late. We've gone over 2 hours here, so and we'll let you guys wrap up. But hey, before we gotta let you go, I gotta ask you guys one more question here.
okay.
Uh-oh.
As you guys have been out all over the countryside, out there looking, digging in all these privies, digging in the woods, raking stuff up, have you ever come across any bones, skeletons?
Well, one of our
We're not
members
supposed to talk about that. This is
found
New
the
Jersey,
body.
land of the mafia. We're not supposed to talk about that.
I
But
was gonna say,
but Pete, you found those two items nailed to the tree. Those were
Oh.
bones.
That's when the policeman put me up against the car and held me against the car. Found was detecting back in this area. It's a fairly it's a reserve. It's a forest wooded area, but it's close to some rough areas. And I was about 12, 15 feet up, maybe 12 feet up a tree. I looked up and I saw a Rottweiler's head with a spike right through the forehead. Big Rottweiler. Cut its head off and nailed it up in a tree. And I was like, holy shit. And I went around the other side of the tree and there was another one. And these are big. They're big dogs. These heads were like this. Yeah. I have pictures, but I don't really show too many people those pictures. But I on my cell phone called the police right away. And I was walking out to the road when they came, and they were kind of very cautious. They had guns out, of course, with vests on. But so there must be some sort of activity or some sort of unsavory stuff going on involving Santeria and some of these local things that some of the different people practice, because these guys were very cautious. And one guy held me there, and then once they figured out it was kind of clear and safe, came back out, and then they wanted to know my name and all of that kind of stuff. But nothing happened. I didn't do anything. But they were definitely on their guard, because it wasn't like, hey, what'd you find?
We come across them because, like Pete mentioned, at Santeria, like sometimes you'll find people do something where you'll find like, maybe 24 pennies around the base of a tree. I don't know if they make a wish or it's a little offering, but you find all these little like shrines. You'll find some melted, like where candles were, and then you'll find like a dead chicken and stuff like that.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of, with all the different ethnic groups in the cities around here. There's a lot of different customs and rituals that they will do out in the woods and in secreted places. So we find some funky stuff.
The common one you hear about is voodoo, but it's got different names. In the Bahamas, it's obia. Jamaica, it's obia. Santeria in the Spanish-speaking islands, and voodoo in the Haitian islands. It's all the same thing. It's Christo demonic worship. It's pretty complicated, actually, but I mean it's around here a lot. You do see feathers, you see chickens. We found goats' heads, skeleton skulls, things like that, and like Joe said, candles and offerings.
Yeah, and then all kinds of little trinkets. You'll find you found all those little tiny tools, like 2-inch long shovels and stuff like that.
I was detecting, and I came across this, and I started to look closer, like just basically not detecting, and I start to pull up little tiny handmade hammers and saws, little tiny things. There's a whole chain full of all this handmade tools and knives, and the most amazing part, there was probably about 6 or 7 pre-Columbian stone axe heads, polished. I mean, beautiful, valuable stuff. Quite honestly,
made out of stone.
Stone axe heads. And the only thing, I spoke to some Hispanic people, and my sister-in-law, who's Dominican, told me that she says she thinks that was an offering for work, like maybe somebody was looking for work or had a hard time because there was little anvils like this big. There was a couple of anvils, beads. It was pretty interesting, but it had been there a long time because the mud and the leaves and all were over it, and it was just coming up. But incredibly good stone axe heads were in there too.
The weird thing is because I remember Paul Radolino found like nautical stuff. There was like a little ship's wheel and anchor and stuff like that. There must be like you never see these things like anywhere. There must be like a voodoo store that you can go in. They got bins of different objects, and it's like, okay, I want to put a curse on somebody. Okay, here, take this skull.
It's in the mall.
It's like.
I need to find that. I need to put curses on a few people that I know. So
there's a lot of people I know close to me. You can't really talk about that stuff too much because they get upset.
So I had some old skeletons that they were all falling apart and stuff. So before April Fools, I hauled them out to the desert and buried them in the washes. So people go out, dry washes, dig in these washes, they're going to find some of these bones.
Bones don't last very long, like the whole thing and the myth of digging up skeletons. That's true, but we were exploring a cemetery in one of the local mines that was from about 1880, and people in the 70s, I guess I would suspect kids, went back and dug up a lot of the graves. And when I was also a teenager going back there was pieces of bone lying around, but you picked it up and it was just melted in your fingers. It was like mud. It was all soft and all that.
Right.
Stuff doesn't last really long.
No.
So I've gone in cemeteries, and we talked about this the other day, where you've seen groundhogs and stuff have been digging in the gravesite and find finger bones and things like that. When they come up from that deep, they're intact. But the stuff that's closer to the surface, that doesn't last very long.
Well, also the mice
I
are
don't
too.
know, but I guess you might.
We talk about mice, Joe?
Yeah, well, no, it's the same thing when you look for sheds, the deer antlers. You have to find them pretty quickly because they're calcium, and the mice and rats, squirrels, they'll chew them for the calcium.
Oh, they're gone in a couple of months.
Yeah, so a good shed usually doesn't last that long. It'll get chewed up.
Well,
so
find old white ones that's been out there for quite some time, and we find old cow bones. Sometimes it's been there for a while. They've turned white because they're so old.
Yeah. Well, you got a different climate by you too. Probably a lot less humidity and it's hotter.
Yeah.
So that stuff will last. If nothing eats it, it's going to sit out there in the desert for a long time.
That's probably true.
We got too many animals out here.
Yeah, I'm talking to a couple of them right now. Okay. All right, guys, we'll let you guys go.
Okay, Jack, always a pleasure.
Yeah,
hey,
Jack. Thanks a lot. I hope your wife feels better.
We'll hope you guys come out, talk to us again. We appreciate you guys got a lot of knowledge to share and all of that. And so it's always good to hear what's going on with you guys. So you guys got a Facebook or anything people can go follow you guys on? Or
Well, the East Coast Research and Discovery Association on Facebook, we post a lot of stuff on that. We put a ton of stuff on there over the weekend. We have a lot of followers on that, and we're always putting the events, places we're going to be at. Because we do talks at libraries. We do stuff at the historical societies. People always want us to tell our tales of woe, and we always have enough material for stuff because we're constantly getting into stuff.
Joe and I have the Lost Treasure Seekers, which we also work on different ideas. We're starting up some new ideas soon enough, and under my name too. Facebook pages,
Yeah, so we try to put stuff out there, but that's a whole nother aspect of it. We spend our time finding this stuff, so we got to make the time to put it out there on the social media.
Yeah, we need to find a tech person.
But if you go on East Coast Research and Discovery and scroll down a little bit, and you'll see a collection. We did a little video the traveling museum, and you're going to see Pete's Indian guns. You're going to see all the points and stuff. It's a real nice video. It shows the amount of stuff that we'll lug around when we do a presentation. So it's East Coast Research and Discovery on Facebook.
Cool.
There's a couple nice videos on there, and Pete has his little bighorn guns on there. He's got his Alamo stuff. He's got some World War II helmets. We have all our bunch of the coins and tokens and stuff, and then a ton of Indian stuff is on there too. So you have to kind of pause the video because I walk around the tables pretty fast. But if you pause it, you can zoom in on some of the stuff. We got a fantastic traveling museum that we set up.
Yeah, the cannonballs are too heavy to bring. I mean, my cannonballs range from 2-3 pounds up to 400. So
yeah, they stay home.
They don't move much.
All right, guys.
All
Guys,
right.
have a lot of fun. Take it easy. Enjoy your weather, man.
Thanks a lot,
You too,
Jack.
Jack.
Always enjoy it with you.
All right.
Be
thanks,
well.
guys.
Happy
All right,
hunting.
Take care.
Talk to you guys later. Thanks, man.
Okay,
See you guys.
good night.
Bye. All right, everybody. Want to thank you guys tuning in for another time. So until next week, till we meet again, you guys all have a fantastic evening. Thanks for hanging. See you guys all later. See y'all. Bye.
Jack's got a shovel and a dream in his hands, staking claims neath the hot desert sand, chasing the glimmer of gold in the sun. Every hill climbed, it's a battle, but he's won. With friends beside him, he's never alone. Through valleys and mountains, they've made it their home. Treasure comes in the memories we make, in the laughter and stories our friendships create. Gold might be pretty, but it's nothing compared to the joy in the journey, the love that we share. They ride the ATV through the wide open plains, laughing and shouting, forgetting the pains. The wind on their faces, a taste of pure freedom. In the heart of Arizona, they know they'll beat 'em. Life's a wild ride, they shout out so bold. Jack says you never slow down, you never grow. Treasure comes in the memories we make, in the laughter and stories our friendships create. Gold might be pretty, but it's nothing compared to the joy in the journey, the love that we share.